Welcome to our channel, Book by Book. We take some of the most impactful personal development guides out there and really try to boil them down to their core ideas, the stuff you can actually use.
That's the plan.
And today, we're tackling a big one. We're doing a summary of a book that aims to fix something that, honestly, feels like the biggest energy drain in modern life for so many people.
Yeah,
Just chaotic thinking.
that's exactly right. The book is Think Straight, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life by Darius Foroux. We're looking specifically at the 2020 Indian edition. It's a pretty compact book, but wow, it packs a punch.
It really does.
So if you listening right now have ever felt like your mind is just this whirlwind of noise, like unproductive worry, doubts constantly popping up, the summary is really for you. We want to hand you the sort of instruction manual for your own mind that Foroux lays out.
Absolutely. And Forough, he doesn't mess around. He gets straight into defining this problem that I think most of us just accept as normal, right? That feeling of being, trapped. Like you're in this endless loop of worrying about stuff, second-guessing decisions you made weeks ago maybe, and just constantly imagining the absolute worst-case scenario for everything.
Yeah, catastrophizing.
Exactly. And he hits you right away with this really powerful idea.
Yeah.
A lot of our suffering, a lot of the potential we feel we lose, it doesn't actually stem primarily from the tough stuff happening outside us. The economy, maybe a difficult boss, just bad luck.
Right.
Fundamentally, he argues, it comes from our own, chaotic and untrained inner lives, our thinking habits.
That's the bedrock of his whole argument, really. He says, look, your mind is the most powerful tool you have, period. It shapes how you see everything, how you feel, the choices you make.
Sure.
But the irony is we spend almost zero time actually learning how to use it properly. We just let it run wild, on autopilot. And often that autopilot mode just generates static and negativity.
When you look around today, the need for this kind of straight thinking feels more urgent than ever, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. We're just bombarded.
Constantly. Information overload is real.
Yeah.
Then there's the endless social media comparison game. And just this general, background hum of global uncertainty. It feels like it's always there.
It is. And that external stuff, it doesn't just tire us out physically. It drains our mental energy, like before we even had our first coffee sometimes.
Right. So Forough is basically offering a way out, a way to move from just reacting to this flood to actually consciously choosing how we process things, how we organize our thoughts.
Which brings us really to the core idea, the maybe revolutionary thesis of the whole book. And you have to get this one first, I think. It's simply, you are not your thoughts.
That sounds simple, but unpack that a bit.
Well, it's simple to say, but it's incredibly empowering when you grasp it. It means you are the observer, right? You're the one driving the car, not the scenery flashing by, not the radio station playing. Your thoughts are just content flowing through. And Foroux argues, because of that separation, you actually have the power to choose which thoughts get your attention, to train your thinking patterns, to filter out the noise, and really manage the whole process.
So it's not just accepting whatever pops into your head.
Not at all. And mastering that distinction, that's the direct path, he says, to mental clarity, to making fundamentally better decisions, and ultimately to living a life that feels more purposeful, more aligned.
And just to hammer home how big this problem of mental noise is, he throws out this statistic. It's a real wake-up call, actually. He says 99% of your thoughts are useless.
Yeah. That one stops you in your tracks, doesn't it?
It really does. My first reaction was 99% useless. Come on. But then you start to think about it, what actually fills up our headspace most of the day? Rehashing some awkward conversation from 3 weeks ago. Worrying about some hypothetical disaster that has a 0.1% chance of happening. Yeah. Scrolling through social media and comparing your messy kitchen to someone's perfectly curated life.
Right. All that stuff.
When you start listing it out, you realize, wow, the sheer amount of mental bandwidth we waste on just noise, it's staggering.
And it's not just passive noise, it's active depletion. That's the key. When he says useless, it really covers three main things, I think.
Okay.
One is rumination, just endlessly going over the past. Two is hypothetical, spinning out worries about futures that probably won't happen. And three is that social comparison trap, dwelling on what others have or what they might think of you.
Right. None of that actually helps you now.
Exactly. None of it produces value. None of it leads to useful action. So by definition, it's useless mental energy expenditure. The whole book then is basically a roadmap for building a really rigorous filtering system in your mind so you can reclaim that huge chunk of energy lost to the 99%.
Okay, so that leads us perfectly into the foundational lessons. How do we actually start reclaiming that energy? And the very first step, maybe the hardest one to really internalize, is lesson 1. You are not your thoughts. Learn to choose your thoughts. That separation principle you mentioned.
Exactly. This is ground zero. Most people, honestly, walk around feeling like their thoughts just happen to them. Like anxiety is this external force that attacks, or negative stories just play on repeat in their head without permission. They feel like victims of their own consciousness stream.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
But Foroux really stresses that just recognizing the separation, realizing you are the thinker who is observing the thought, that's the critical first step. It's the gateway to taking back control. It shifts thinking from being this passive thing you suffer through to an active process you can manage and choose.
How do you make that choice feel real? Because let's be honest, when anxiety hits hard, that thought, maybe what if I fail this presentation? It feels intensely true. It doesn't feel like just optional background noise.
No, it doesn't initially, and that's where the practice comes in. It requires immediate active replacement. When that negative self-talk pops up, our default is often to just follow it down the rabbit hole, right?
Yeah.
Straight thinking means consciously stopping that, interrupting the pattern, and imposing a more constructive alternative. So when your mind offers up, say, oh, she must think I'm totally incompetent after that meeting, you have to actively substitute it.
With what, though? Just positive thinking?
Not necessarily just blind positivity, more like realistic, controlled
Wow.
thinking. You substitute it with something like, okay, her opinion is hers. My actual worth is defined by my actions and my values, not just her perception of one meeting. It's like an internal act of mental assertion.
Okay.
And every single time you actively choose that more constructive, grounded thought, you weaken the grip of the automatic negative one. It's like building a muscle.
To help us visualize this, because it can feel a bit abstract, Forough uses a great analogy, the radio tuner analogy.
Yes. This is one of the best mental pictures in the book, I think. Imagine your mind is like an old radio, constantly scanning across different frequencies. You've got hundreds of channels playing all at once. There's the fear channel, broadcasting 24/7. There's the comparison station, playing everyone else's highlight reel. You've got the endless news cycle of doom channel.
Definitely got that one.
But somewhere in there, you also have other channels. You've got the goal-setting channel, the purpose and clarity channel, the gratitude channel. And you are the one holding the tuner.
Okay, I like that.
You might not control the fact that those noisy, negative channels exist out there in the ether, but you absolutely control the dial. You decide which station gets your attention, which one you tune into.
So let's say I'm tuned into the anxiety channel. It's loud, it's full of static, it's making me panic about something next week. What's the actual effort involved in switching over to, say, the goal channel, which might be focused on the 3 specific actionable things I can do to prepare?
The effort isn't about trying to forcefully suppress the anxiety noise. That often backfires.
Yeah, telling yourself don't think about it
Yeah.
makes you think about it more.
Exactly. The effort is about redirecting your attention. You acknowledge, okay, the anxiety channel is playing. You don't fight it directly, but you consciously shift your inner focus, your inner ear, away from it and towards the channel that offers something useful, something actionable.
Like hearing a loud siren outside while you're talking.
Perfect example. You don't try to mentally stop the siren, do you? You just acknowledge it's there and refocus on the conversation. So the immediate actionable step here is simply observation. Just start noticing, what station am I actually listening to right now? Is this thought useful, or is it just noise?
Okay.
And if it's noise, you deliberately, consciously turn the dial, even just slightly, towards a thought that is actionable, even if it's a tiny action.
Right. Okay. So once we start to internalize that we can choose where we focus our mental energy, the next logical step is figuring out where to apply that choice effectively. We can't control everything.
Precisely.
Which brings us straight to lesson 4. Focus on what you control. Let go of what you don't. And this is where Forough really leans into some ancient wisdom, doesn't he?
Yes, heavily. This part is deeply influenced by Stoicism, especially that core concept known as the dichotomy of control.
Explain that a bit.
The basic teaching is super simple but profound. If you spend your precious mental energy worrying about things that are fundamentally outside your influence, like the weather or global politics or what your client really thought about your pitch last week or whether the economy is going to take, you are literally just signing up for unnecessary suffering.
Because the worrying doesn't change the outcome.
Exactly. That worry is, by definition, a useless thought in Foroux's framework because it cannot possibly affect the thing you're worried about. It's just wasted energy, mental friction.
That's the tricky part, though, isn't it? Really drawing the line. What does Foroux emphasize is definitely within our control.
Okay, so the lane is actually pretty short, which is kind of liberating. It's things like your effort, your mindset, the attitude you choose, the preparation you put in, the choices you make right now, and critically, your response to whatever happens.
That's it?
Pretty much. Everything else, other people's opinions, their judgments, the way external events unfold, the job market conditions, whether someone likes you, all of that is ultimately uncontrollable.
So worrying about getting a job is natural, but...
But straight thinking says, okay, channel that energy. Spend it on polishing your resume, practicing interview answers, networking the things you can control. Don't spend it agonizing over how many other people applied for the same role because that's completely outside your sphere of influence.
This is where he brings in the ship analogy, which helps draw that boundary really clearly.
Yeah, it's a fantastic image for navigating complex situations. Think of yourself as the captain of your ship, your life. You control the helm, right? You decide where to steer. You control trimming the sails to catch the wind. You set the course.
Okay.
But you absolutely cannot control the strength or direction of the wind itself. You can't control the size of the waves hitting the boat. You can't control whether fog rolls in.
Right. Makes sense.
A straight thinker, Foroux argues, spends zero energy shouting at the wind, trying to command it to change. That's futile. Instead, they focus 100% of their energy on adjusting the sails, using the rudder, responding skillfully to the conditions as they are, whatever they may be. That practical redirect, just focusing on adjusting your sails, is a massive anxiety reducer.
So the practical application is this huge shift in where you invest your energy. Stop trying to mentally wrestle with the uncontrollable stuff. Instead, pour stronger, more focused action into the variables you can actually adjust.
Yes. And consciously practice letting go. Let go of dwelling on past regrets, which you can't change, or spinning out future fears about things that are way outside your immediate control.
Which leads us really nicely to the next key lesson, lesson 7. Because we're choosing our thoughts and focusing our control, what's the ultimate point of all this? Foroux says it's to live with clarity, reflect, align, and be yourself.
Exactly. This is crucial. Thinking straight isn't about becoming some kind of emotionless robot or just a hyper-efficient success machine.
Right. It's not just about productivity hacks.
Not at all. It's fundamentally about alignment. It's about making sure your thoughts and therefore your actions are actually in sync with your deepest, most authentic values and who you really are.
I think so many people confuse external success with internal alignment, don't they? They chase the goals they see on Instagram or maybe the career path their parents wanted for them. And then they get there and they wonder why they still feel kind of empty or restless.
Precisely. And Foroux insists that clarity, born from this kind of straight thinking and reflection, is the antidote to just living life on autopilot. He strongly encourages regular reflection as a vital, almost preventative practice.
Preventative against what?
Against getting swept away by external momentum, just going with the flow without checking if the flow is actually taking you where you want to go. If you don't consciously pause and ask yourself, hang on, is this really my path? Or are these ambitions mine? Or did I just absorb them from the culture around me that maybe values hustle over actual happiness? If you don't ask those questions, you inevitably drift off course.
Yeah.
You end up applying all this wonderful, focused mental energy, but towards someone else's definition of a good life.
He uses the clean window analogy here, which I thought was really effective. What's the grime on the window that stops us seeing clearly?
The grime is basically all the unfiltered noise and borrowed judgments we soak up every single day without realizing it. It's the pressure from society's definition of success. It's the distorted images of perfection we see online. It's maybe outdated beliefs from our upbringing. It's that general cultural static telling us we're not enough or we should want this specific thing. When your internal window onto the world and yourself is covered in all that grime, everything looks distorted. Your goals seem fuzzy. Your relationships might feel off. You can't accurately gauge your own progress. You just can't see your true direction clearly.
So reflection is the act of cleaning the window.
Exactly. Cleaning the window through focused, honest reflection allows your authentic self, your genuine values, your true path to come back into sharp focus.
So for someone listening who thinks, okay, I need to clean my window, how do they actually do that? How do you schedule reflection? It feels like something that could easily get pushed aside.
It absolutely needs to be a dedicated ritual, not just something you hope happens spontaneously. You need to consciously set aside time. Maybe it's weekly, maybe just monthly to start.
What does that look like?
It could be journaling dedicated time with a notebook. It could be going for a walk specifically for this purpose without music or podcasts, just thinking, or even just sitting quietly for 15, 20 minutes. The key is to use that time to review. Look back at recent choices, recent feelings. Ask those alignment questions. Are my actions moving me towards what I truly value? Are the people I'm spending my energy on supportive of my path?
And if the answer is no,
then clarity has done its job. It shows you exactly where adjustments are needed. It points the way back towards your authentic course.
okay, so we've laid the groundwork. We understand we can choose our thoughts. We need to focus on control. And the goal is clarity and alignment. Now we need the nuts and bolts, the practical tools for actually managing the mental flood.
Yeah.
This feels like the real how-to part.
It is. And this starts with lesson 3. Filter and clear your thoughts. Declutter your mind.
Decluttering the mind sounds good.
Think about it. The average person today, estimates suggest, processes more information in a single day than someone centuries ago might have encountered in their entire lifetime.
Wow. Yeah, that feels true.
So this constant fire hose of input creates massive mental clutter. It's like having way too many browser tabs open in your brain all the time. We're perpetually running too many background applications.
Right. Slows everything down.
Exactly. And Foroux is really clear on this. You must become an active filter. You have to be intentional about what you even allow into your mind in the first place. And maybe even more importantly, you have to choose what you give sustained attention to once it's in there.
He uses the cluttered desk analogy here, doesn't he?
Yes, and it's perfect. Imagine your mind is your workspace, your desk. If that desk is buried under piles of random notes, old to-do lists you never did, maybe some unpaid bills, coffee cup rings, half-finished projects, it's basically impossible to find the one important document you actually need to focus on right now, isn't it?
Totally. The clutter itself becomes a source of stress.
Precisely. And in the mind, that clutter looks like overlapping worries. Maybe a mistake you made last week keeps popping up. There's a vague anxiety about money floating around. You're trying to remember 7 things you need at the grocery store. And you're also worried about what a friend said. All that chaos isn't just messy. It actively drains your focus and energy.
So the solution is mental hygiene. Treating our minds like we hopefully treat our physical spaces.
Pretty much. We need to practice mental hygiene. And Foroux suggests some pretty strong boundary setting here.
Like what?
First off, aggressively turn off unnecessary notifications. Those little pings and buzzes are designed to pull you out of focused thought and into external chaos. Just call them ruthlessly.
Okay, that's actionable.
Second, batch your consumption. Don't check your email or scroll social media constantly throughout the day. Designate specific, limited times for that kind of input. Foroux even suggests scheduling deep thinking blocks in your calendar where input is strictly 0. No email, no phone, no interruptions. You have to consciously decide when the input stream gets turned off so that focused processing can actually begin.
And what's the #1 tool he recommends for actually getting the existing clutter out of your head?
That would be the brain dump technique. This is huge. He suggests making it a daily, or at least near daily, ritual.
How does it work?
It's simple. You need to download everything that's swirling around in your working memory onto a physical page or a digital note. Just list it all out. The worries, the tasks, the random ideas, the anxieties, the little reminders. Don't censor or don't organize yet. Just empty the mental desk. Get it out.
Okay, sounds cathartic, but then what? You just have a messy list.
But the crucial part comes immediately after the dump. You then go through the list item by item and categorize. Ask yourself, 1, is this actually useful information or a task? 2, is this completely not useful, like pure worry, rumination, something I can't control? Or 3, does this require some kind of action from me?
I see. So you sort the clutter.
Exactly. That simple act of writing it down and then quickly categorizing it does something powerful. It moves the thought out of your brain's expensive RAM, your active working memory, and into an external system. Now you can manage it, schedule it, or, importantly, consciously decide to just throw the not useful stuff away. You've externalized the chaos.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we declutter. What's next? This leads into lesson 5. Simplify your thinking, less is more. This seems related but distinct.
It is. It's about efficiency and reducing friction. We often fall into this trap of thinking that complexity somehow equals sophistication or intelligence.
Yeah.
Juggling lots of variables, having intricate plans. But Foroux argues, pretty convincingly, that for effective decision-making and action, the opposite is usually true. Complexity actually breeds confusion.
How so?
Well, when a problem or decision has too many moving parts, too many factors to consider, it often leads to paralysis. It delays action because you're trying to account for everything, and it dramatically increases the mental friction, just the sheer effort required to even think about the problem clearly.
Whereas simplicity.
Simplicity cuts through that. It's the catalyst for better, faster, more confident decisions. If you're trying to optimize, say, 5 different metrics in your career simultaneously, you'll likely feel overwhelmed and stuck.
Yeah.
But if you simplify and decide to focus intensely on just the 2 most crucial ones for right now, suddenly the path forward becomes much clearer.
But isn't there a potential downside? Like, if we oversimplify things, maybe by having a really basic wardrobe or eating the same meals often to save decision energy, do we risk becoming less mentally flexible when a genuinely complex, unexpected choice does come up?
That's a really good question. And Foroux's take on it essentially is no. Because this kind of simplification isn't about degrading your thinking skills. It's about strategic resource allocation.
Resource allocation.
Yeah. It's about conserving your finite daily pool of decision energy. Think of it like mental bandwidth. You only have so much each day. By automating or simplifying the low-stakes, routine decisions like what to wear, what to eat for lunch, you free up that precious bandwidth. You conserve that energy for the high-stakes problems and decisions that genuinely do require your full cognitive power, your straight thinking.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
He uses the camera lens analogy here, right?
Yes, exactly. Think about trying to take a photo when everything is overly complex and cluttered in the frame. The lens struggles to focus, right? Everything looks fuzzy and distinct. You can't clearly see the main subject. By simplifying, by consciously reducing the number of choices, the number of variables you're trying to juggle, you're effectively adjusting the focus ring on that camera lens. You narrow the depth of field until the core issue, the main target, becomes sharp, clear, and actionable. You're essentially saving your mental acuity, your sharpest focus, for the moments and decisions where it truly counts.
So the practical application here is about ruthless prioritization and reduction. Like, choose maybe your top 3 most important tasks for the day and consciously decide to let the less important stuff wait.
Yes. And simplify common areas to cut down on that daily decision fatigue. Maybe it's meal prepping, maybe it's creating a work uniform. The goal is to save your best thinking for the big stuff.
Okay, now, we have to address the elephant in the room when it comes to thinking straight. Our emotions. They often feel like the primary driver of chaotic thinking.
Absolutely, which is why lesson 2, practical thinking over emotional reaction, is so vital. We've all been there, right? Felt that emotional hijack where anger or fear takes over and we say or do something we immediately regret?
Definitely. When conflict flares up or you get bad news, that initial emotional surge, maybe it's panic, maybe frustration, maybe anger, it feels so powerful.
Yeah.
And it often dictates our immediate response, usually not for the better.
Right. And Foroux isn't suggesting we try to become emotionless Vulcans like Spock or something. That's not realistic or even desirable. Emotions carry important information.
So it's the straight thinking approach.
It's about developing a process. It means, first, recognizing that a strong emotion is present, acknowledging it, maybe even naming it, okay, I'm feeling really angry right now. Then, crucially, creating a small gap, a pause, before you act. In that gap, you consciously choose how to respond, rather than just letting the initial impulse seize the controls and dictate your actions.
So the goal is a purpose-driven response, not just a knee-jerk reaction.
Exactly. Let's revisit the ship analogy quickly. Think of emotions as the wind. They are powerful, they can be unpredictable, they shift. We don't want to get rid of the wind entirely. It provides the energy, the power for the ship to move. Think passion, conviction, drive. But you, the captain, must ensure that your reasoned purpose, your chosen direction, stays firmly at the helm, steering the ship. You use the emotional energy for propulsion, you harness it, but you don't let it smash you into the rocks.
And the key tool for creating that vital gap between the emotional impulse and the reasoned response is what he calls the decision pause. How long does that pause actually need to be effective?
It's often surprisingly short. He suggests sometimes just 10 seconds is enough. Take one slow, deep breath. Maybe mentally count to 10. That tiny space is often sufficient for your rational brain, the prefrontal cortex, to catch up with the faster, more primitive emotional brain, the limbic system.
Just 10 seconds.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
And you follow that pause immediately with a quick check. The time horizon question. Ask yourself, okay, this intense feeling I have right now, will this decision, this reaction I'm about to make actually matter in a week? What about in a month? In a year?
That perspective shift.
Exactly. That detachment from the sheer immediacy of the feeling often dissolves a lot of the impulse's power. You realize the long-term consequences of reacting emotionally probably aren't worth the short-term release.
Okay, but what if the emotion is really deep-seated? Like intense anger after a really frustrating argument with someone important, a colleague or partner. How does the book suggest handling that kind of strong residual feeling without just letting it fester or explode later?
Yeah, that's important. For those stronger, stickier emotions, Foroux recommends using specific detachment tools to sort of externalize the feeling before you try to resolve the situation.
Externalize? Like how?
It could be something like writing out that furious email you want to send,
Yeah.
but then explicitly saving it in your drafts folder. Make a pact with yourself. I will not send this for at least 24 hours.
Okay, let it cool off.
Right. Or journaling about it, just getting the raw anger or frustration down on paper without editing, without judgment. Just vent it privately. This act of writing it down helps separate you from the emotion. You can then look at the actual issue more objectively, detached from the immediate heat, and gain the clarity you need to figure out an effective, strategic, and, well, straight response, rather than just an emotional outburst.
All right, so we've worked on cleaning the mental desk, sharpening our focus with simplification, and learning to manage those emotional hijacks with pauses and detachment. But now we hit a section that, I think, trips up a lot of people, especially careful thinkers, actually moving from all this clear thinking into doing something.
Yes, this is crucial. Lesson 6. Take action thinking without doing is inertia.
Inertia, that sounds bad.
It is in this context. Foroux points out a potential paradox here. The very process of learning to think straight, getting clear, analyzing options, planning carefully can ironically lead you right into the trap of analysis paralysis.
Where you think so much you never actually start.
Exactly. You achieve this beautiful mental clarity. You might have a near-perfect plan laid out, but you keep delaying the actual execution. Maybe you tell yourself the conditions aren't quite perfect yet, or you're waiting for just one more piece of information, one final bit of certainty that never seems to arrive.
Why do smart, thoughtful people fall into this trap so easily?
I think it's often because they overvalue intellectual certainty compared to real-world feedback. They kind of mistakenly believe they can solve the entire problem perfectly inside their own head before taking a single step.
But you can't, right?
You really can't. Foroux stresses this point hard. Imperfect action is infinitely better than perfect inaction. You can't solve a maze just by staring at the map forever. Eventually, you have to take a step into it. Action, even small action, provides real-world feedback. It shows you obstacles you didn't anticipate. It gives you data points that endless internal thinking simply cannot generate.
So action actually clarifies your thinking further.
Precisely. The minute you try something the world pushes back, it gives you information. That information then refines your next thought, making it even straighter, more grounded in reality, and more effective for the next step. It's a loop.
This ties into the seed analogy he uses, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Where ideas are like seeds.
Yeah, it's a simple but powerful image. If your idea, your brilliant plan, the seed, just stays sitting on the table of your mind, maybe perfectly labeled in a neat little box, it remains dormant. Its potential, but it never grows, never yields any fruit, and certainly never creates new seeds for the future.
Right.
Action is the messy but necessary act of planting that seed in the actual soil, even if the soil isn't perfectly fertilized or the weather forecast isn't absolutely ideal. You have to get it in the ground to see what happens.
So when we feel that anxiety that comes from just mentally looping, going over the same worry or the same plan again and again, what's that a signal for?
Foroux would say that's often a clear signal that it's time to move, to take action. It doesn't have to be a giant leap. Start small. Take one trial step. Do a small experiment. Measure the results, however minor. Adjust your plan based on that real data, and then move again. Sometimes, just setting a hard, non-negotiable deadline for making a decision or taking the first step is necessary to break that cycle of overthinking and force forward momentum.
Okay, but we want that action to be productive, right?
Right.
Not just frantic, chaotic movement. How do we ensure the action we take is aligned with this straight thinking process?
Good point. To guide that, Foroux provides some essential frameworks, starting by really clarifying the difference between a useful versus useless thought. This brings the whole filtering idea into sharp focus.
Back to the 99% statistic again. How do we actively categorize thoughts in the moment?
He gives us some pretty rigorous filtering questions, like gates a thought has to pass through to be deemed useful and worth spending our precious mental energy on. You should ask. 1, is this thought actionable? Like right now, can I physically do something constructive about this? Yep. 2, is it constructive? Does this thought actually help me move towards a goal or build myself or a situation up? Or is it purely critical, negative, or destructive? 3, is it truth-based? Am I reacting to verifiable facts here, or am I spinning based on assumptions, rumors, worst-case hypotheticals, or just raw emotion?
That's a tough one sometimes.
It is. And finally, 4, is it under my control? This loops back to the Stoic principle. Is this something I actually have influence over?
So if the answer to basically any of those is no,
then, according to Foroux, the thought falls into the useless category. It needs to be actively discarded, or at least consciously sidelined, maybe noted in the brain dump later, but not engaged with mentally right now. Don't follow it down the rabbit hole.
the overall emphasis here then is on pragmatic thinking. It's about utility.
Absolutely. Utility is paramount for the straight thinker. A thought must produce tangible value. That value could be clarity, it could be progress towards a goal, personal growth, or even just a sense of peace. If a thought is purely theoretical, just spinning hypotheticals for the sake of it, or overly academic without a direct, practical application to your life right now, it's likely draining mental energy that could be much better spent solving real problems or planning your next strategic move.
So avoid getting lost in abstract worries or mental gymnastics that lead nowhere.
Exactly. Use your mind as the powerful tool it is to solve current challenges and plan concrete next steps, not to indulge in self-inflicted mental chaos.
And this whole process, the thinking, the filtering, the acting, the learning, it all comes together in what you call the engine of mental mastery, the action and feedback loop.
Yes. This is the practical engine that keeps the whole system running smoothly and prevents you from getting stuck either in analysis paralysis or just reacting emotionally all the time. It's a continuous cycle.
Okay, break it down.
First, you think clearly, using all the tools we've discussed, filtering out noise, focusing on control, simplifying. Then, based on that clear thought, you take action, however small or imperfect that first step might be.
Right, plant the seed.
Then, crucially, you reflect on what actually happened. What was the real-world outcome? What data did that action provide? What worked, what didn't?
Learn from experience.
Exactly. Based on that reflection and data, you adjust your approach, tweak your plan, and then the loop starts again. You think clearly for the next cycle, armed with new information and insights.
And this loop builds confidence over time, presumably.
Massively, because your decisions and actions become increasingly based on real-world data and experience, rather than just fear, assumption, or internal hypothesis. It makes clarity not just a state of mind, but a measurable, continuous process fueled by action and learning.
Okay, this has been incredibly insightful. Think straight. As you said, it's a short book, but wow, it is dense with strategies you can use immediately if you're feeling overwhelmed by mental chaos. Let's do a quick recap of those 7 core lessons we've unpacked, just to reinforce the main ideas.
Sounds good. So number 1, you are not your thoughts. Remember that separation. You have the choice. You hold the tuner.
Right.
2, practical thinking over emotional reaction. Recognize emotions, pause, then choose a reasoned response. Use the wind. Don't let it steer you into the rocks.
Got it. 3.
Filter and declutter your mind. Be ruthless about what you let in. Use boundaries. Use the brain dump. Keep that mental desk clean.
Number 4.
Focus on what you control. Channel all your energy into your effort, your response, your choices. Let go of everything else. The ship analogy.
Makes sense. 5.
Simplify your thinking. Less really is more. Complexity breeds confusion. Simplify gold. Simplify choices to reduce friction and sharpen focus, like the camera lens.
Okay.
Take action. Thinking without doing is just inertia. Imperfect action is always better than perfect inaction. Plant the seed. Action creates clarity.
And finally, 7.
Live with clarity, the ultimate goal. Use regular reflection to ensure you're aligned with your authentic values and path, not just drifting on external currents. Clean the window.
That's a fantastic summary.
Yeah.
Now, for everyone listening who's thinking, okay, I get the concepts, but how do I actually start doing this? The book offers some brilliant, very concrete, Homework assignments, essentially.
Yeah, these are great.
These are the 10 immediate, actionable takeaways we'd really recommend trying, maybe even starting today.
Okay, let's list them out. First, track your thoughts for just one day. Seriously, just jot down those recurring negative or worry thoughts as you notice them. Later, look at the list and honestly ask, how many were actually useful versus just noise?
2.
Journal daily, even just 5 or 10 minutes. Do that brain dump, get the clutter out of your head and onto the page, ideally before your workday starts or before you go to sleep.
3. Ask control questions. When you face a challenge or feel worried, immediately ask, what exactly can I control in this situation? What is actually under my power? And then focus your energy only there.
4. Practice pausing. That 10-second rule. Before you speak or act when feeling a strong emotional impulse, take that deep breath. Pause. Give reason a chance to catch up.
5. Simplify decision-making. Look for low-stakes areas, meals, clothes, workout routines, and reduce the number of choices you have to make there. Save that mental energy.
6. Set boundaries with technology. Turn off those non-essential notifications. Maybe schedule specific deep thinking or no input times into your day. Protect your focus.
7. Take small, imperfect action. Pick one thing you've been stuck on, overthinking, stuck in analysis paralysis about. Identify the absolute smallest possible step you could take towards it, and just do that one small thing today.
8. Reflect weekly or monthly. Look back at your journal entries if you're keeping one. Notice patterns. Which thoughts keep repeating? Did your recent decisions feel aligned with your core values?
9. Filter your inputs deliberately. Be way more selective about the news, social media, and other content you consume. Actively reduce exposure to things that trigger anxiety or comparison, and seek out content that supports the clarity you want.
And finally, 10. Be yourself. This sounds simple, but it's profound. Actively question whether your goals and your path are truly yours, or if you're pursuing them just to meet someone else's expectations, parents, society, etc. Constantly check back in with your authentic values.
These are so practical. They're simple steps, but you can immediately see how doing them consistently would have a massive cumulative effect on your mental state.
Absolutely.
And just to help these powerful ideas really stick, let's highlight a few of the most impactful quotes from the book one last time, the ones that really capture the essence of Foroux's message.
Okay, we absolutely have to start with that big one, the statistic that really defines the problem. 99% of your thoughts are useless. Just keeping that in mind is powerful.
It really is.
Yeah.
Then there's that core statement about agency and choice, the foundation of it all. You have the ability to decide what you think, or you can choose not to think. That ability to disengage is key.
Mm-hmm. And finally, the overarching promise, the thesis that really drives the whole book: change the way you think, and you'll change your life. It really emphasizes that our internal world shapes our external reality. Thinking straight comes first.
Think Straight really is a concise yet incredibly potent guide for anyone wanting to reclaim their mind from the noise and chaos of modern life. If you, listening, implement even just a couple of these core lessons, maybe focus on filtering your thoughts better, really zeroing in on what you control, or just committing to taking that imperfect action, you will notice a difference. You'll likely gain more confidence, feel more clarity, and just feel generally more grounded day to day.
And think about that closing thought. If 99% of our thoughts truly are useless noise, just imagine for a second how much time, how much energy, how much sheer life you could reclaim by learning to consistently focus on just the valuable 1%. The challenge is simple. Start today. Try to catch just one useless thought as it floats by. Recognize it for what it is, noise, and then actively, consciously choose to tune into a better, more useful frequency instead.
That's a powerful place to start. Thank you for that. If you found this summary helpful, we kindly request you subscribe to our channel Book by Book for more such helpful book summaries, share with others, and like it, which will motivate us to keep bringing the best book summaries.